Hey, middle school crew, welcome back to another lesson. Today we're going to be in the book of Exodus. So if you have a Bible near you, or you don't, go get one and turn to the book of Exodus. And feel free to pause this if you're turning there. I'm just going to jump right into it. So we're going to be in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 11. Exodus 20, verse 11. And I chose this passage. Before we jump into it, let me just share with you. It's the passage about honoring your father and your mother. Now, I chose this passage because you all in this time are going to have much more time to spend with your mother and father. And so I think you all know this passage. You've heard of it before. But have you really sunk your feet into it? Have you gone in deep when it comes to honoring your mother and your father? Have you asked questions like, why should I do that? Why does God tell me to do that? Why does that make sense? Why is that right? So have you gone through those questions, and has this passage really affected you a lot in your life? Do you really honor your mother and your father? We're going to talk about that in our time here today, and I'm going to give you some 5 practical ways towards the end of this video that what does it look like to honor your father and your mother, especially during this time where you're spending a lot more time together in the house. Most likely, maybe things haven't changed much for you if you're a homeschooler, but yeah, so we're going to jump into this and then move forward. So Exodus 20 verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So if you noticed, we actually jumped right into a part of the 10 Commandments. So this is the passage, Exodus 20, is right after God, like the storyline, right after God rescues his people from Egypt, he then brings them out to Mount Sinai and he gives them the 10 Commandments. Now that is super significant, the order of that. So Look if you will at chapter 20, the very beginning, verses 1 and 2. So the order is important. The fact that God first rescued his people and then he gives them the commandments. Order is huge. And so Exodus 20 verses 1 and 2. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. So see, then he goes into, you shall have no other gods before me. Don't make any engraven image of any likeness of it. You shall not take the Lord your God's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. And then he goes into honor your father and mother, the 5th command. And it goes and so forth for the commandments. But what's really interesting, guys, is that the Lord doesn't go to Egypt and say, all right, guys, so I really want to rescue you from Egypt. Like, I know you're piling on bricks and straw, and, you're working really hard as slaves. And, like, I know you're doing all these things, and I know it's terrible, and I know you're enslaved. But you got to follow all these commands in order to be my people. So until I see you following these commands, then I can't rescue you from Egypt. That's not what God does. What God does is he rescues them without them doing anything. He just, of his own accord, because they're his people, because he loves them, he rescues them first, apart from them working or doing anything. And then after God rescues them freely, by grace, he then gives them commands to follow. So think about this like sort of like being on God's baseball team, right? So all the baseball teams in this world, it's different than if you were on God's baseball team. Baseball teams in this world, you try out. You got to be good enough. You got to keep your stats up. You got to perform well during tryouts, and then you get on the team. Okay, God's baseball team, very different. You, by his grace, he says, I want you to be on my team. And you say, okay, I'll be on your team. Like, do I need to try out? Nope, you're on my team. Like, just believe in me, trust in Jesus for the forgiveness of your sins, and you're on the team. Boom, you're on the team. So, and then what happens next is then God trains you to be a baseball player. He gives you practice. You start doing all the drills, and you learn what it means to be a baseball player. So in the same way, you become a Christian first by God's grace, and then God gives us these commands to teach us what it means to act like and be like a Christian. So part of being on the team, right? Part of being on God's baseball team, so to speak, part of being a Christian is striving to do these commandments, is striving to live these out, not to get on the team, not because we can earn our salvation, but because by God's grace, he's given that to us freely in Jesus to be received by faith alone, apart from works. Guys, Jesus earned it all. He did everything in our place. There's no pressure for you to perform to be on God's team, to be a Christian. So now this command to honor your father and your mother, that's a part of what it means to be a Christian. So what does it mean to honor? Here's the first question we should ask. What does it mean to honor? And this word honor, or kabod, it means to hold as weighty. There's a heaviness, there's a treasuring. If you kabod something, if you honor something, you treasure it, you value it, you care deeply about it. What do you guys care about deeply in your lives? What pops into your mind? What is something that you treasure a ton? See, that's something you honor. If you hold it as significant, you honor it. So what does it look like to treasure your parents? What does it look like to honor your father and your mother, to care deeply about them, to hold them as weighty, to hold them as people in your lives who hold tremendous significance? Right, this is part of the 10 commands, guys. Like, this is serious. This is very important. So especially during this time when you're gonna, like I said, spend a lot more time with your parents, what does it look like to honor them? So here's 5 ways. I just want to give you 5 practical tips of honoring your mother and your father. Number 1, listen to them. Listen to them. Not passively, but actively. So what I really mean by listen is not in one ear and out the other, but in your ear, in your brain, in your heart, it stays there. You guys know, you know when your parents like really want your attention, and you need to give it to them. I'm called to do the same thing with my parents, even though I'm in, my own house now, or apartment with Bree, with my wife. But I'm still called to that. I'm called all of my days to honor my mother and my father, and to treasure them. Another word that I'm sure you've heard is obedience. So obedience is actually something that our sinful nature tells us is not fun, and that will not be good for us, that it won't satisfy us. Like, oh, I don't want to obey. Like, I want to be my own person. I want to do things my way. That's sin. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. And we should not think about doing things our own way. We should want to do things God's way. We should want to live according to His word. And we should desire to listen to our parents and to obey them. We're called to obey Christ. And so that's really crucial, is listening to them actively, not passively. So that's number one. Number two is do not test them, but trust them. Your parents care about you. They love you. They want what is best for you. So when they're telling you to do something that to you in the moment, it doesn't make sense, or it's hard, realize that they're striving to help you. Because if you kind of think about it like a personal trainer in the gym, right? You know, if a personal trainer will push you and tell you to do things that you might not want to do, but they're telling you to do that because they know that it's good for you. They know that extra repetition of lifting the weight will help grow your muscle so that you can perform better. And so that just an example, but you know, same thing with other sports too, with, you know, swimming, like, you know, doing that extra lap or working on another stroke. Your coach might tell you to do that again and you don't want to, but if you want to actually grow, you trust what they're saying, even if you don't want to do it. So that's number two. Don't test, but trust. And we should really do the same thing with God. We are called to trust God and not test God. So that's number two. Number three, find ways to help them. Find ways to help them. And I'm talking beyond chores. I'm talking beyond what you normally do. Be more proactive. Think about start thinking about, okay, what's something else I could do to help my parents, to help my mom, to help my dad? You know, how can I be thinking about their needs above my own? And that's a huge switch, right? Because your parents have been thinking about your needs your whole life. And so for you to switch that and say, hey, you know what, mom, what do you need? How can I help you? Dad, how can I help you? That will blow their minds. They will be like, wow. Number four, love your brothers and sisters. If you have siblings, it will help your parents so much. It will honor them. They will feel cherished and valued and treasured if you love your siblings, if you're patient with them, if you're kind to them, if you strive to be sacrificial for your brother and for your sister. This is such a big deal. And guys, as a middle brother, I know for a fact, I was always the one, you know, either instigating the problem or mending the situation as the middle brother. And so I just want to encourage you guys and girls to think through, how do I make my parents' life more I guess easier, even. Like, how do I lift weight off of them during this time? Number five, and this is really important, thank them. After this video, after our Zoom talk, go and thank them for all their sacrifice in your life that they have made. Seriously, do that. Like, don't forget to do that. Just go to them and say, hey, I wanted to just thank you for all of your sacrifice in my life. And it's not easy to be a really good parent, and you're a really, really good parent, and you're kind, you're thoughtful, and I really am thankful that you're like that in my life. And so I just wanted to thank you. And just don't tell them it's, you know, because you saw this video or something. Just it's really because God's word. Like, if you go and do that, you should do it because, like, God tells us to honor our parents. And And so the last thing I wanted to say, guys, that's number 5. I wanted to close with this. The most joy you can have as a youth, as someone who's young right now, living with your parents, the most joy you can have is by honoring them. It is not by dishonoring them and disobeying them and sinning against them. That's not where joy is found. Guys, your sinful nature is real, and so is the devil. He wants to make you think that they're against you, that they're not looking out for your best. But they are, and even though they're not perfect, they're striving to be like Christ. I know your parents with the students that are in this group now. So they care about you maybe a lot more maybe than you realize. And so you should really take some time and thank them for that. Just because, no agenda. Like, don't just do it. And I close with that. Thank you again for joining, and we'll see you on the Zoom chat.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood.